Hey, Mike from AMB. Here reviewing 3 hitch racks, some Kuat racks, who are now available from FE Sports in Australia. They've been around since about 2008 with some pretty innovative and lightweight hitch racks. They've got another range of roof racks and so on too, but we're just looking at hitch racks at the moment as a simple way to carry bikes to the trail. So the 3 racks that we're testing from Kuat are the NV 2.0, which sells for $1,259, the Transfer V2, which sells for $699, and the Beta, which is $399. We're also going to test the Pivot Swing Away, which sells for $599. So all the Kuat products come with their no worries lifetime warranty, which is pretty much as it sounds. If you're the original owner and you got an issue, no worries, they're going to look after it for you, and most likely shipping direct from the States to your place. The Kuat NV 2.0 is the top dog of their rack. So this is the main one we're going to focus on at first. It is a 2-bike rack. You can get an additional add-on for it, but as a 2-bike rack, it does mean you can have 27 kilos per bike on there. So it's no problems taking a Bronson and a Trek Fuel EXE well within the weight limits. It fits 20 to 29 inch wheels, although for the 20 to 24 inch wheels, you do need an adapter. You can get an access ramp if you've got a really heavy e-bike that just to help roll it up onto the top, and it's a 24 kilo rack. So it's not as heavy to fit onto your car as some other racks, like a vertical bike rack, which is up to 10 to 15 kilos heavier than that. So we got this rack flat packed. It took me probably 30 minutes to build it. Not much swearing, I just followed the instructions patiently and got it together. You could probably do it in half that time if you're focused. We've got the black one. You can get it in a grey and orange as well if that's what you're after. But what I really like about it is how solid it is when you're driving. So it's got barely any movement in there, and that's because of a number of things. So partly you've got the arms which lock down over the tyres, so it's frame-free contact. And also there's a cam lock system in the hitch. So while I've got the hitch pin in there, and the rack comes with a locking one, and I've also got the bolt in the hitch tightened up too, the majority of the stability is from the cam lock within the hitch that really expands into the hitch size to make it so stable. So going over the mounting, I'll take this bike off first. So it's pretty easy to undo. Fold that out of the way. Then the strap down here undoes. So this Bronson's got a pretty long wheelbase. This will take up to a 1270 millimeter wheelbase. But if you need to make it shorter or longer, it's actually easy to do with the rack itself. So there's an 8mm Allen key that stays stuck in the back there, and the front cradle, which will take a plus size tire through to a road or gravel tire. It's got 3 positions. So it's in its lowest setting at the moment, which creates the longest effective wheelbase. But this also helps get handlebars and saddles cleared. So you can have it in the middle setting there, or all the way up. So if you're fitting different bikes and you need to get the clearance right, easy to do. Just lock it in, then you pop your 8mm back, and it's good to go. So there's a pedal just here. You can reach it with your hand or with your foot, depending how it is. And that lets us just lower the bikes down. And in this case, we should be able to open the boot. Fingers crossed it clears. So it gives us full access to the back of the car as needed. What's really cool with this rack though is once you've got the bikes off, what you can do with it. So it's got the Trail Dock system. So this is basically a work stand that comes with you to the trails. I mean, if you don't want this, you can get pretty much the same rack for $10.99 without this, and you can always add it later. But the model we've got on test has it included for $12.59. And you've got a work stand to take to the trailhead. So if you just need to sort out your gears, lube your chain, anything you need to do where you want your bike in a work stand, you're good to go right here. It's quite a useful thing to have at the trail. You know, maybe your mate's come and he's got a flat tire and you want to pull the wheel out easily to change it. or maybe somebody's tweaked the derailleur hanger, you need to get it sorted out, you've got a work stand with you. So I think that's a great piece of, a great little accessory to have on this stand, just to make it a bit more useful, add some extra functionality. So like anything attaching to the back of your car or on the roof, you need to think about your number plates, how visible they are, and your lights, and also the vertical overhang. So that's the same as the vertical bike racks we've looked at too. You've still got that 60% rule. I think you'll find with the hitch rack that's going to be okay for most longer wheelbase vehicles, but this rack would obscure your number plate and lights, so you will need to find an aftermarket way to have them both easily visible. Kuat don't do one, but plenty of manufacturers do make a plate and lights board, so make sure you've got one to be completely legal. So we'll just take a look at the cam lock that's helped keeping this thing so rock solid on there. So it comes with an 8mm, but to be honest, you can do most of it by hand. I'll take the pin out. Normally it comes with a locking pin, but it just doesn't fit on this vehicle for where the 7-pin plug is. So I've got those out there. So here's the magic here. As I tighten up that 8mm Allen key, this ball expands inside the hitch receiver, and that's why it ends up so stable. So it does mean you can only insert it to one point, but so you can't run it closer or further out depending on your vehicle clearance, but it does mean it is a rock solid way to make sure it's secure in your car. So in terms of security, the Kuat NV 2.0 does come with a locking hitch pin, but it also has some inbuilt locks. So you've got 2 cable locks. Basically, you come around, lock it back in here, and it key locks in there. So if you are on the road and you're stopping to get a burger or a drink, or just filling up with petrol, you can make sure your bikes are safely locked on there. One thing I like about the Kuat NV 2.0 is the ground clearance. Obviously, we've got it attached to an Isuzu MU-X, so it's going to have good ground clearance anyway, but it is quite high off the ground, so if you are reversing, you're unlikely to bottom it out, or if you're exiting a steep driveway. You can get a hitch mount called the high-low, which gives you an extra 50mm height, or if you've got a massively lifted four-wheel drive, you can drop it 50mm as well. And it also gives you about 250mm extension if you need to get past a spare tyre. So next up is the Kuat Transfer V2. It's got a lot of the same features in terms of abilities as the NV 2.0, but it's a cheaper package at $699 for the 2-bike rack, and the rack itself weighs 17 kilos, but it can still take 2 27-kilo e-bikes. So let's fit it up and take a closer look. So like the other racks, it's got this cam lock in there, so when we put it in the hitch and we tighten the bolt, it'll expand and fill the space to make sure it's rattle free. So this rack doesn't come with a locking hitch, which is fine because it wouldn't fit on this car. What it does come with is a security 8mm. So as I'm tightening it up here, using an 8mm Allen key that's got a hole in the middle, so you can't run a regular 8mm Allen key in there. So realistically, with the Kuat Transfer V2, it's pretty much the same as the NV 2.0 in that you've got the large front cradles and the rear cradles and the sliding clamps to go over the front wheel. So still frame-free contact. You can get the fat straps so you can have a 5-inch tyre in the back, and you've still got a 1270mm wheelbase limit. These straps are actually, they're co-molded, slightly rubberized plastic straps, so they're very strong, but they're also not about to end up causing damage to your rims as well, because they are soft on the interface. So the Kuat Transfer V2 This is the 2-bike rack at $6.99. I really like this one. It's been very easy to get along with. It's easy to load because it's 17 kilos for the rack itself. The functionality of loading it is just about the same as the NV 2.0. There is a 3-bike model as well at $8.29, but when you have the more bikes on there, it does drop the weight limit down to 17 kilos per bike. So like the Kuat NV 2.0, the Transfer V2 comes flat packed. It's probably in a few more parts, but it still took me about a half hour to build because they're lighter parts and it's easier to put together. But I really like that you can still carry a bike with a 1270mm wheelbase. It'll take 18 to 29-inch wheels, so it's very versatile, and it's still very stable when you're driving. Like the NV 2.0, it doesn't have any options for lights or plates, so you will need to bring your own lights and plates board to make sure that you're 100% legal. So this is the Kuat Beta. It's $3.99. It's a 6.5 kilo hitch rack that carries 2 bikes. Even though it's so lightweight, it can carry bikes up to 18 kilos each. So like the other Kuat racks, the Beta uses a hitch pin right in the base here. But you know, the real masterpiece is the cam lock. So again, you can get it started by hand and you can feel that it's already getting tighter there, and then just tighten it up with the 8mm. And it's rock solid. What's really cool with this rack compared to some other kind of post mount racks like this is the gated pins to let it fold down, both in the top and the bottom. So if you look here, the bottom, you can take this pin out and it'll fold right down, so you can open your boot. Watch my head. I wouldn't do this with your bikes on there, obviously, so it's not as convenient than a swing away and a full service rack. But normally you'd expect when you've got some more joints and moving parts to have more movement. But Küat have this threaded part here with the kind of resin at the end, and it screws onto this part here, and it really takes away any of that potential movement. So we'll pop it back in. Now it's not going to fall out now, and then obviously it's got some movement. Wind it up, and it's got no movement. So I think that's really smart. Got the same kind of function up here. So means if you don't have much storage room at home, this rack really folds away to nothing. So these are the cradles that are going to support the bike. So you can see that this one here is kind of an L shape. That means it's designed to fit around the top tube and the seat tube on a bike. So drivetrain out and then around the top tube. What the lower strap here does, it prevents the sway in and out. So you really need to be able to get that done up, whereas the top two keep it, keep it in place. And then the other one is opposite. So it'll be drivetrain in. So your top tube here and your seat tube here. So given the bikes that we've got on hand, because you do need a fair bit of open real estate in the main triangle, we've only got one bike that actually fits on here, the Trek Fuel EXE that I've got. If I took the battery out, it would be within the weight limit, but it doesn't have the room in the main triangle to mount on here. So that's a bit of a limitation with a rack like the Beta, but gravel bikes would fit easily. Most large size mountain bikes will be fine, but you will want to check that with your own bike if you're looking to get this rack. So the Kuat Beta, it's $3.99, 6.5 kilos, can fit 2 18 kilo bikes. The limitations are what kind of bikes it can fit on it. So no real problem fitting this Santa Cruz Bronson on here. So we're using the rocker link just here to secure. It's got a tiny bit of movement. I would probably maybe look to stabilize it a little bit more if I was heading on a long road trip. But really, it can take a lot of different kinds of bikes, but not as versatile as your tray style racks, such as the Transfer V2 or the NV 2.0. But for the quality workmanship, it's low weight and the ability to fold down, I think it's best in class for this style of rack. So all of Kuat's racks, whether the tray style like the Transfer V2 or the NV 2.0, can tip down with bikes on them to allow access to the back of your car, assuming you've got the clearance there for how your boot opens. And it's the same on this one, which is kind of rare. So I'll put the pin in, holding it with the bike, and the pin acts as a stop down low, and then I'm not going to let it drop because it's not damped. So all the way down, and should eventually be able to get into my boot when it automatically opens. Easy as. Along with the Pivot 2.0 swing away to allow the racks to move away from the back of your car, there's a few other extras that you can get from FE Sports if you want. This includes the NV bike ramp, so it'll help you wheel an e-bike onto the NV bike racks. Also the high-low, which is a hitch extension with their cam system, which gives you a 50mm drop or rise for your hitch height. And there's the rack dock, which is a wall-mounted storage system, so you can mount one of the racks on your wall at home. And lastly, the fat kit, which means you can secure fat bike tires that are around 5 inches size. So this is the Kuat Pivot 2.0 swing away. It does what it says on the tin. It lets the racks swing away. You can get it either in a passenger or driver swing away. This is a passenger swing away, but it's an American product, so it swings away to the drive side. So be wary of that when you're ordering. It does let you open it to 90 degrees and 120 degrees. So if you've got a full barn door, that 120 degrees where it locks into place will allow the door to open completely. Worth keeping in mind that once you've got this on there, the total load is 114 kilos. So if you've got quite a heavy rack and bikes to go on, you need to make sure you're going to fall well within that. So the Pivot has the same cam lock mechanism. It does come with a locking hitch pin as well. Again, as I've mentioned, we can't fit the locking hitch pin on our Isuzu. We can just run a regular one, but we can run it where we fit the rack on. So it does add that extra level of security. Just like the other ones, it has that cam. So, bomber. So before we load it up, you can see you've just got the lock here, so it's pretty firm. You undo that, and then swings away, locks at 90 or around at 120 degrees. So that means it's not going to swing away from you and bash the side of your car with your bikes. It's nice and rock solid. So with the Pivot 2.0 swing away and the NV 2.0 rack on there, it's still really rock solid. You can see a lot of that movement's just in the suspension of the car. What I found driving with it like this is that there is more movement in the rear vision mirror, but it's not a rattling movement. It's just because there's a tiny bit more sway there, and it's absolutely minimal. There's just more material and some more moving parts. But it does add a whole lot of functionality. Means easy access into the boot, and the bikes are completely away to the side. Now obviously, because you can get it in the passenger side as well, it could be on that side. So just think about what's going to suit you and your vehicle the best. It does move further to the 120 degree position, but just with this car and these bikes, the rear tire does almost hit on the car. So it is just going to depend what setup you've got there for whether you're going to get the clearance, but absolutely no hindrance into getting into the back of the car this way. So the Pivot 2.0 swing away, it's $599 and it has a whole lot of functionality, being able to swing the bikes 90 or 120 degrees away from the back of the car, which might be essential depending if you've got a van or you've got a barn door opening, rear SUV. It just depends if you need that rapid access. I mean, it does add some weight, it does add some limitations on how heavy the equipment can be, because it's 114 kilos total weight, so that's rack and bikes. But in general, I think it gives a whole lot of functionality if you need that. Bear in mind, it does also add a fair bit of distance off the back of your vehicle, so do be mindful of what your 60% overhang limit is. So as a reminder, that is 60% of your wheelbase past your rear axle. So on our Isuzu MU-X, that means we can't have anything beyond 1.7 meters from the rear axle. That's it for all the Küat reviews. If you've got any questions that I didn't kind of cover, drop them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, get on the phone to FE Sports and ask those guys direct. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more product reviews.